See, if you take a plant and I take a cross section of a stem or even leaf, okay, but not root. If you take the cross section, it something looks like this under microscope. As plants are always exposed to outer environmental conditions, they should have some protective covering, isn't it? So that protective covering we call as epidermis. Epidermis is the layer which you will find only in plants. This basically will act as a protective cover over the plant. Okay. So in order to avoid all the environmental conditions, we'll have an outer protecting covering called epidermis. When you take the cross section of the epidermis, you'll have something like this. So here if you see, the epidermis is made up of few cells called epidermal cells. This is the layer of epidermal cells, first layer. And above the epidermal cells layer, you'll have another layer called cuticle, like this. Okay, cuticle. Why the cuticle terminology is important over here? Let's see. Suppose if you take the plant, you'll have leaf structures and stem structures almost covered by a thick layer called epidermis, and all the epidermis is made up of dermal cells, and above the dermal cells you will have a thick layer called cuticle. Really, what happens when water is continuously lost from the plant? Loss of water from the plant, what we call?
Transpiration.
Yes, continuously if the plant loses water, what will happen? The plant will wilt and may die, obviously. So there should be some check on the loss of water, isn't it? So how a water loss can be checked? Because of the presence of a thick layer called cuticle. When you take the word cuticle, it's a thick layer which will put a check on the loss of water continuously. So on one hand, we have to check total loss of water. On the other hand, water loss has to be done. So both has to be balanced. One way we have the cell of the plant has to lose water, and the other way it has to control the loss of water. How the balance can be done in controlling loss of water and checking the loss of water? This is by means of some structures. We'll find some gaps here, see. Even though there is a thick epidermis layer and a cuticle layer, you'll have some gaps from which you'll have trichomes. Trichome here nothing but the hair-like structures, which we talked right now about the cotton fiber. Okay, those are called trichomes. Above the seed we'll have. Okay, other than that, gases has to come in and out of the cells. So some passes has to be there. And even sunlight has to get in for the photosynthesis purpose. So some gaps has to be there. So the epidermis will have some gaps so that cuticle will not totally control the loss of water. What really happens in this control and checking and balance? So I'll show you the other slide, which it will be very clear what actually is happening. Can you see the slide? Okay. This is what the structures which will check and balance the loss of water, photosynthesis, entry and exit of different gases. So you might be familiar with this word stomata. You have heard in the earlier classes, yes? What are stomata? Students, what
Small
are stomata?
pores.
Okay, small pores. That's all. Where you will find stomata?
Ma'am, on the epidermal surface.
That you can see in the picture. In the last classes, I mean in the past classes, what you studied about stomata. Alifia, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know anything about stomata?
Ma'am, it is surrounded by two kidney-shaped guard cells.
Don't talk anything about shown here. I'm asking where you will find stomata. All these things I'll explain.
On the leaves, ma'am.
On the leaves. Okay. Other than that, only on leaves. Any other answers, Sahas? We'll find stomata in all aerial parts. Aerial parts means what? All the exposed parts of plant will have stomata. Get this basic idea. Okay. Usually we'll show the leaf, but you'll find stomata on stem, branches, and on leaves. Okay. But on leaves we'll find more number of stomata. There's a hypothetical explanation that more than 400 number of stomata, as Arnav said, pores. Okay, there's more than 400 pores we'll find on leaves, and less than that number you'll find on stem and branches. But basically, stomata we'll find on all area parts of the plant. So here comes a question: does roots have stomata?
Ma'am, roots.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, I think roots do not have stomata.
Remaining students, you also feel the same answer as Arnav is saying? Sahas, you feel the same. Roots doesn't have stomata. Alifia?
Ma'am, I feel like roots have stomata.
Okay, we have two contradictions. Roots will have, roots won't have. Let's see. Let's see the majority two students what they said, roots don't have. Okay. When you take the stomata function, stomata are basically for photosynthesis. Basically, we call stomata basically are helping in photosynthesis. Now tell Kalithia whether roots possess stomata or not.
No, ma'am.
No. Roots doesn't have stomata. Not only roots, what are underground parts? Some of the root modifications we see, the radish and turnip and all the root modifications which will be underground. All those doesn't
roots can have trichomes and root hairs, but not stomata.
Yeah, stomata won't be there in roots because they are not at all involved in photosynthesis. Now see how the stomata are involved in photosynthesis. So before getting into the functional aspect of stomata, first let me explain what this aerial part, the stem part or the branch part or the leaf part is doing with the plant. What are the different functions they are giving to plant? First one is diffusion. Diffusion of what? Diffusion of gases. See, plant, usually we say the plant releases oxygen and the plant gets carbon dioxide. That's what usually we'll say. But plants also will release carbon dioxide. You know this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Usually we'll talk, plants will release oxygen and take up only carbon dioxide. But it's not like that. The plants will also take oxygen and they also release carbon dioxide. Okay. See, when you take the atmosphere, in the atmosphere you will have a mixture of gases, isn't it? You'll have all kinds of gases. The plant leaf or plant stem cannot specifically choose only carbon dioxide to take in, isn't it? It will take the mixture of gases from the atmosphere. It will take oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, whatever gases there in the atmosphere. Everything will be taken up by the plant. Okay. So once the gases were taken in, they'll be used for some processes and they'll be diffused out. No gas can stay inside any cell. So obviously, along with oxygen, carbon dioxide also will be released. Okay. So this is the basic point you have to understand. After coming to 9th standard biology, you have to understand plant takes in oxygen also. Plants gives out carbon dioxide also. Okay. Am I clear with this point? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.